The blue glow from the data screens lit up Nari's face as she hunched over the ancient texts. The repository was quiet this late in the cycle. Most other archivists had gone home hours ago, but not Nari. Never Nari when she was close to something important. "Display text fragment C117, she said to the computer. Her voice was soft but clear in the empty hall. The system hummed, and new words appeared on her screen. And the vessels of the humans brought fire and thunder across the stars. Their war machines moved like angry gods. Nari's heart beat faster. This was the third reference to humans she had found this week. The Galactic Concordat said they were just stories, scary tales told to children. "Be good, or the humans will come with their terrible weapons," parents would say to naughty youngsters across 1,000 worlds. But Nari knew better. After 200 years as an archivist, she had seen too many strange gaps in the records. Too many sealed files. Too many restricted sections that no one could explain. She saved the file to her private collection and stretched her arms above her head. The movement made her silver uniform catch the light. As senior archivist, she had access to more texts than almost anyone else on EL-7. The crystalline planet served as the main knowledge center for the entire Concordat. Its transparent cities housed billions of records from across the galaxy. "Computer, show me the star map from text B998, she said. A hologram appeared above her desk. It showed a section of space at the edge of the Concordat. A large area was marked in red. No name, no details. Just a warning, restricted by order of the High Council. Why ban an empty area of space, Nari whispered to herself, unless it's not empty at all. The soft hiss of the door opening made her quickly close the hologram. Heavy footsteps approached. "Still here, Nari. The sun set 3 hours ago." High Commander Doha's voice was deep and carried the weight of authority. His tall frame blocked the light from the hallway as he stood in the doorway. The commander's dark uniform was perfectly pressed, and the golden symbols of the Concordat gleamed on his chest. "Just finishing some work, Commander," Nari said. She smiled politely but moved her arm to cover her notes. Doha walked into the room. His eyes moved across her desk, searching. "The Zilarian trade agreements need cataloging by tomorrow. That should be your focus." "Yes, Commander. I'll get to them right away." Doha nodded but didn't leave. Instead, he picked up one of the data crystals on her desk. "These are from the old archives, Section 7. His voice was cold now. "You know those records are restricted." Nari kept her face calm. "I have clearance for historical research, Commander. The Concordat's history is my specialty. Some history is better left in the past." Doha put the crystal down carefully. Too carefully. "The Council is concerned about your interests, Nari. Your requests to access sealed records have not gone unnoticed." Nari felt a chill run down her spine, but she met his gaze. "Knowledge is the foundation of our society, Commander. That's what the Concordat stands for. Knowledge must be managed for the good of all." Doha moved toward the door but stopped to look back at her. "Focus on the trade agreements. Leave the old stories alone. They're just stories, Nari." After the door closed behind him, Nari let out a long breath. She wasn't surprised by the warning. This wasn't the first time Doha had tried to redirect her work, but she couldn't stop now. Not when she was getting closer to the truth. She packed her personal data pad and prepared to leave. The great hall of the repository stretched before her, its crystal walls reaching up hundreds of meters to the domed ceiling. Billions of data crystals lined the walls, each containing the knowledge of entire civilizations. The combined wisdom of 1,000 worlds, collected over tens of thousands of years. And yet somehow an entire species had been erased from that history, turned into mere stories. The next morning, Nari arrived early. She had barely slept, her mind racing with questions. As she approached her workstation, she noticed someone already there. A young man stood by her desk, examining one of her star charts. He wore the blue uniform of a junior archivist. When he saw Nari, he straightened up quickly. "Senior Archivist Nari, I'm sorry to touch your things." The young man bowed slightly. "I'm Jin. I was assigned to help you with the Zilarian agreements." Nari studied his face. He looked fresh from the academy with bright eyes and a nervous smile, probably sent by Doha to watch her. The agreements are there. She pointed to a stack of data pads. Start by organizing them by date. Jin nodded eagerly and got to work. Nari sat at her desk and pulled up the trade documents, but her mind was elsewhere. She needed to be careful now. Doha's warning meant she was being watched more closely. After several hours of working in silence, Jin spoke up. "Senior Archivist, may I ask a question?" Nari looked up. "Yes?" "I noticed you have research notes about the Silent Expanse. I studied it briefly at the Academy. Why is that region restricted?" Nari's interest piqued. She turned to face him fully. "What did they teach you about it?" Jin shrugged. "Not much, just that it was declared off-limits 5,000 years ago. Something about dangerous space phenomena." "And you believe that?" Jin hesitated. He glanced around to make sure they were alone. "My grandfather was a navigator. Before he died, he told me he once saw strange lights at the edge of the expanse, ships that moved too fast to track. The Concordat told him it was just sensor errors, but..." He trailed off. Nari made a decision. "Follow me, Jin." She led him to a small room at the back of the repository. The door locked automatically behind them. Nari activated a device on her wrist and a shield hummed to life around them. "Privacy field," she explained. "What I'm about to show you is not in the public records." She placed a data crystal into the reader. A hologram appeared, showing an ancient vessel. Its design was unlike anything in the Concordat fleet. Angular, functional, built for power rather than beauty. This was recovered from an abandoned outpost near the Silent Expanse 300 years ago. The material analysis doesn't match any known Concordat technology. Nari's voice was low and intense. "Jin, I believe humans are real, and I believe the Concordat knows it." Jin stared at the hologram, his eyes wide. "But why hide an entire species? Turn them into monsters from children's stories?" "That's what I need to find out." Nari turned off the hologram. "There's something in the oldest section of the repository. Something I need help accessing." Jin looked nervous but also excited. "What can I do?" Before Nari could answer, her datapad chimed. An alert flashed on the screen. "All senior archivists report to Central Hall immediately." "We'll continue this later," Nari said, deactivating the privacy field. "For now, keep cataloging those agreements. And Jin..." She looked him in the eyes. "Be careful what you say to others." As Nari hurried to the Central Hall, her mind raced with possibilities. After 2 centuries of searching, she had finally found someone else who questioned the official stories. Perhaps with Jin's help, she could finally uncover the truth about the humans, and about why the Concordat wanted them forgotten. The research vessel Eternal Wisdom cut silently through the darkness of space. Its sleek blue hull was designed to blend with the background radiation, making it nearly invisible to standard sensors. Captain Sun stood on the bridge, his hands clasped tightly behind his back as he stared at the viewscreen. "Are you sure about these coordinates, Senior Archivist?" he asked, turning to Nari. "We're approaching the edge of the Silent Expanse." Nari nodded. The journey had taken 3 standard weeks since she and Jin had discovered the ancient data crystal hidden in the deepest archives. The crystal contained coordinates and what appeared to be a warning, or perhaps an invitation. "I'm certain, Captain. The crystal was placed there deliberately, sealed away from the regular archives." Commander Tay, the military observer assigned to the mission, stepped forward. His uniform was darker than the others, marking him as part of the Concordat security force. "The Council only approved this expedition because of your reputation. Archivist. They expect a full report on the spatial anomalies you claim to be investigating." Nari met his gaze calmly. "And they will get one." She didn't mention that the Council had never seen the real data crystal or its contents. What they had approved was a routine scientific mission, not a search for a supposedly mythical species. Jin approached with a data pad. The young archivist had proven invaluable in the weeks since their first meeting. His knowledge of ancient navigation systems had helped decode the crystal's coordinates. "We'll reach the boundary in 30 minutes, Jin said quietly. "If the crystal is correct, we should find an abandoned outpost at these coordinates." Captain Sun nodded. "Maintain stealth protocols. I want minimal power signatures until we know what we're dealing with." The bridge crew worked efficiently, their movements practiced and calm. None of them had been told the true purpose of the mission. As far as they knew, they were simply charting an unexplored region of space. Nari moved to a side console where she had set up her research equipment. The ship's science team leader, Hyun, was already there, frowning at the readings. "These energy patterns are strange," Hyun said, not looking up as Nari joined him. His fingers moved rapidly over the controls, adjusting the sensors. "There shouldn't be any artificial signals in this region." "What kind of signals?" Nari asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. "I'm not sure." Hyun's frown deepened. "It's as if something is deliberately masking its presence. The patterns appear and disappear too regularly to be natural." Nari felt a thrill run down her spine. This was the first real evidence that something or someone was out here. After 200 years of searching through dusty archives, she was finally close to the truth. "Can you isolate the source?" Hyun shook his head. "The signals are coming from multiple locations, and they're moving." He looked up at her with suspicion in his eyes. "You don't seem surprised, Archivist." Nari was saved from answering by an announcement from Captain Sun. "We are now crossing the boundary into the silent expanse. All personnel remain at alert status." Everyone on the bridge fell silent as the ship glided into the forbidden zone. The view screen showed only empty space, stars, distant nebulae, nothing unusual. But the tension was palpable. 3 days, Commander Tay said quietly to Nari. "That's how long I'll allow this expedition to continue in restricted space. After that, we return to concordate territory, findings or no findings." Nari nodded but said nothing. 3 days would have to be enough. By the 3rd day, the crew's initial tension had faded to boredom. The silent expanse appeared to be exactly what the official records claimed: empty space with unusual radiation patterns. Nothing more. Nari sat in her quarters, staring at the data crystal. Had she been wrong? Was her entire career built on chasing shadows? A sharp knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Senior Archivist?" It was me, the young communications officer. "You asked to be notified of any unusual signals." Nari was on her feet instantly. "You found something?" Mi nodded, her eyes bright with excitement. "It's faint, but there's a repeating pattern. It doesn't match any known concordate transmission protocol." Nari followed me to the communication station on the bridge. Captain Sun and Commander Tay were already there, along with Jin and Hyun. "Play it," Sun ordered. Mi activated the console. A series of pulses filled the room, not random noise, but clearly structured. "Pattern, intent, intelligence. Can you trace it?" Commander Tay asked. His earlier skepticism replaced by intensity. Mi adjusted the controls. "It's coming from Sector 7, about half a light hour from our position." "Set course," Sun ordered. "Maintain stealth protocols." As the ship changed direction, Nari and Jin exchanged glances. They were close to something important. Nari could feel it. "The signal is getting stronger," Mi reported as they approached the coordinates. "But there's something else now. Energy readings consistent with large-scale technology." "How large?" Commander Tay asked. Mi looked up, her face pale. "Planetary scale, sir." Before anyone could respond, the ship suddenly lurched. The lights flickered and died, plunging the bridge into darkness. Emergency backup systems activated a moment later, casting everything in a dim red glow. "Status report," Captain Sun shouted. "All main systems are offline," the engineering officer called back. "Something external has disrupted our power grid." "External?" Commander Tay moved to the weapons console. "Raise shields." Unable to comply. "Shield generators are offline." The view screen flickered back to life and collective gasps filled the bridge. The Eternal Wisdom was surrounded by massive vessels of unknown design. Their hulls were dark gray, almost black, with no visible windows. Sharp angles and weapon ports covered their surfaces. They were clearly warships, and they dwarfed the Concordat research vessel. Count 15, no, 17 vessels, Hyun reported, his voice shaking. Their hull composition doesn't match any known material in our database. Nari stepped closer to the view screen, her heart pounding. The ships bore markings in an unfamiliar script, and their hulls showed evidence of recent battle damage. These weren't ancient relics. They were active, functional warships. Are they Ravagers? Commander Tay asked, naming the only hostile species currently known to the Concordat. Negative, Hyun replied. Design is completely different. The communications console suddenly lit up. Incoming transmission, Mi announced. They're broadcasting in standard. Put it through, Captain, Sun ordered. A voice filled the bridge, clear, authoritative, and speaking perfect Concordat standard. Concordat vessel, you have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves and state your purpose. Captain Sun glanced at Nari, then at Commander Tay. After a moment's hesitation, he stepped forward. This is Captain Sun of the Concordat Research. Vessel Eternal Wisdom. We are on a scientific expedition to study spatial anomalies in this region. There was a pause, then the voice returned. Concordat Vessel Eternal Wisdom, you have entered human space. Prepare to be boarded. The words hit the bridge like a physical force. Human space. Not folklore, not myths. Real Nari felt Jin's hand, on her arm, steadying her. She had been right all along. The humans existed, and they had found them, or rather the humans had found them. Commander Tay's face had gone pale. Impossible, he whispered. They're supposed to be extinct. Boarding shuttle approaching, Mi reported, her voice small in the sudden silence. Nari watched the small craft detach from one of the massive warships and head toward the Eternal Wisdom. After 2 centuries of searching through ancient texts and hidden records, she was about to meet the monsters from the children's stories. The folktale had become reality. The docking bay of the human battlecruiser Defiance was larger than Nari had expected. The Concordat delegation, Captain Sun, Commander Tay, Nari, Jin, and Hyun, stood in a tight group, surrounded by armed human soldiers. The soldiers wore black armor that seemed to absorb light, their faces hidden behind dark visors. Nari studied everything with wide eyes. The technology around them was unlike anything in the Concordat. The walls were made of a material she didn't recognize. The lighting was efficient but softer than the harsh brightness of Concordat ships. And the humans themselves, they moved with a fluid grace that reminded her of predators. This way, said one of the soldiers, gesturing toward a wide doorway. They were led through corridors that curved in unexpected ways. Nari noticed that despite the warship's intimidating exterior, the inside was surprisingly comfortable. There were plants growing in small alcoves. Art decorated some walls. This was not just a war machine, it was a home for its crew. Finally, they reached a large room with a round table in the center. A tall human stood when they entered. Unlike the soldiers, this one wore no helmet, revealing a face that was both familiar and strange, 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, much like many Concordat species. But there was something in the way the human held himself that spoke of power and confidence. I am Admiral Park of the Earth Defense Fleet, the human said in perfect standard. Welcome, aboard the Defiance. Captain Sun stepped forward. I am Captain Sun of the Concordat research vessel Eternal Wisdom. This is my security officer, Commander Tay, and our science team. Admiral Park nodded to each of them in turn. When his eyes fell on Nari, he paused. You're the archivist, he said. It wasn't a question. Nari blinked in surprise. Yes, I am Senior Archivist Nari of EL-7. We've been monitoring your research for some time, Park said. Your interest in human folklore caught our attention. Commander Tay stepped forward. You've been spying on Concordat systems? Park smiled slightly. We've been observing. There's a difference. He gestured for them to sit. Please, be seated. I imagine you have questions. They sat around the table. Nari noticed that the chairs adjusted automatically to each person's body type, a small but thoughtful detail. How is this possible? Captain Sun asked. The historical records state that humans were wiped out in the Vex War 5,000 years ago. Your historical records were altered, Park replied simply. Humanity was never destroyed. We withdrew. Nari leaned forward. The Concordat lied. But why? Admiral Park touched a control on the table. A holographic display appeared above them, showing a star map of the galaxy. Certain areas were highlighted in red. 500 years ago, humanity was part of the galactic community, Park explained. We were explorers, traders, and when necessary, warriors. The Vex Dominion attacked without warning. They consumed entire worlds. The hologram showed images of massive ships, different from the human vessels, more organic in design, firing on populated planets. The Concordat fought alongside us at first, Park continued. But their weapons were ineffective against the Vex. Humanity had to develop new technologies, weapons that could stop the Vex once and for all. The hologram shifted to show human warships engaging the Vex. The battle was brutal, with losses on both sides. We won, Park said quietly. But the cost was high. And when the fighting was done, the Concordat feared us. Feared you? Jin asked. Why? Because of what we had become to survive. Park's eyes were dark with memory. Our weapons could destroy stars. Our ships could travel in ways that defied conventional physics. The Concordat Council decided we were too dangerous to remain part of the galactic community. Nari thought of the children's stories. The warnings about humans and their terrible weapons. It made sense now. So you left? She asked. Park nodded. A treaty was signed. Humanity would withdraw to certain regions of space, the areas you now call the Silent Expanse and a few others. The Concordat would maintain a buffer zone and tell their people we had been destroyed. Both sides would maintain the pretense. But why would humans agree to this? Captain Sun asked. We were tired of war, Park said simply. And we had our own concerns. The Vex were not the only threat out there. We used our isolation to prepare, to build, to strengthen our defenses. Commander Tay leaned forward. If this treaty exists, then we have violated it by entering your territory. Yet you haven't destroyed us. Why? Because your arrival is timely, Park said. He touched another control, and the hologram changed again. Nari gasped. The new images showed planets being systematically destroyed. Massive swarms of small ships surrounded each world, stripping it of resources and life. The Ravagers, Commander Tay whispered. Park nodded. You know them. They raid our outer colonies sometimes, Tay said, but never in such numbers. This is new, Park agreed. For centuries they've been content with small raids. Now they're organizing, becoming more ambitious. They've developed a hive mind that coordinates their attacks. The Admiral stood and walked to a larger screen on the wall. It showed a tactical display of the galaxy. Large red areas were spreading like a disease across the Concordat's territory. The Ravagers have already taken 4 of your major systems, Park said. Your outer defenses are falling. The Concordat's weapons are not effective against their new hive ships. How do you know all this? Sun asked. We've been watching, Park said simply. Monitoring. We have stealth vessels throughout Concordat space. Nari understood then. That's why you let us find you. You need to warn the Concordat. Park turned to face her. Precisely. The old treaty is no longer relevant. Humanity must return to the galactic stage, or there will be nothing left to return to. The Council will never agree to an alliance, Commander Tay said firmly. Not with... He stopped himself. Not with monsters? Park finished for him. The monsters your children fear in the dark? There was no anger in his voice, only a tired acceptance. Perhaps. But they have little choice. Your weapons cannot stop the Ravagers. Ours can. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Nari looked at the tactical display again. If Park was right, the Concordat faced extinction. I've studied the fragments of your history for 200 years, Nari said finally. I always believed humans were real, but I never imagined meeting you under these circumstances. History has a way of coming full circle, Park replied. 5,000 years ago, humans and the Concordat fought together against the Vex. Now we must stand together against the Ravagers. The ship's communication system chimed. A human officer's voice came through. Admiral, long-range sensors have detected a Ravager scout fleet approaching the Concordat's central worlds. Estimated time to arrival, 48 hours. Park's face hardened. It seems time is shorter than we thought. He looked at Captain Sun. You must return to your people, Captain. Tell them what you've seen here. Tell them humanity has returned. Sun looked uncertain. And if they don't believe us? Park's smile was grim. They will, because we'll be right behind you. Nari felt a strange mix of fear and hope. For centuries, humans had been the monsters of children's stories. Now they might be the Concordats' only hope for survival. As they prepared to return to the eternal wisdom, Nari approached Admiral Park. The archives on EOL 7, she said quietly. The references to humans that I found. They were left deliberately, weren't they? Breadcrumbs. For someone to follow. Park nodded. We've always maintained contingencies, ways to re-establish contact if needed. You knew someone would eventually find them. We hoped someone would, Park corrected. Someone curious enough to look beyond the official story. Someone like you, Archivist Nari. Nari thought of all her years of searching, of being dismissed and ridiculed. 200 years is a long time to wait. For humans, Park said with a slight smile. Patience is a skill we've had to learn. As Nari boarded the shuttle that would take them back to their ship, she looked at the massive human vessels surrounding them. The monsters from the folktales were real, and they were about to change the galaxy forever. The Central Council chamber of the Concordat had never been so loud. 200 representatives from 1,000 worlds shouted over each other. Some stood on their seats. Others pounded their fists on the smooth crystal tables. The news that Captain Sun and his crew had brought back from the silent expanse had thrown the Concordat into chaos. High Commander Doha stood on the main platform, trying to restore order. Council members, please. We must discuss this calmly. Slowly, the noise died down. Doha looked at Captain Sun, who stood with his crew to one side of the chamber. Nari could see the anger in Doha's eyes. You have violated a restricted zone, Doha said coldly. You have endangered the Concordat by making contact with a dangerous species. A species that your records claim doesn't exist, Nari replied, stepping forward. The Concordat has been lying to its people for 5,000 years. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many of the council members looked confused. Others looked worried. What the archivist says is true, Captain Sun added. The humans were never destroyed. They withdrew from the galaxy by treaty. A treaty that the highest levels of the Concordat have kept secret. Doha's face darkened. These are dangerous accusations. He was interrupted by a loud alarm. Red lights flashed around the chamber. Attack alert, a voice announced over the speakers. Unknown vessels have appeared in orbit. The chamber erupted again. Some council members rushed to the windows that overlooked the capital city. Others crowded around view screens that showed the space above the planet. It's the Ravagers, someone shouted. No, Nari said quietly. Then louder. No, it's not the Ravagers. The main screen at the front of the chamber flickered to life. Admiral Park's face appeared, calm and serious. People of the Concordat Central Council, he said. I am Admiral Park of the Earth Defense Fleet. We come not as enemies, but as former allies. The council members fell silent, staring at the human on the screen. For many of them, it was like seeing a ghost or a monster from childhood stories made real. This is outrageous, Doha shouted. You have no right to enter Concordat space. We have every right, Park replied calmly. The treaty was broken when the eternal wisdom entered our territory. But we are not here to argue old agreements. We, are here because the Concordat faces a threat it cannot handle alone. The screen split to show tactical data, images of Ravager ships destroying Concordat colonies, maps showing the advance of the Ravager fleet toward the core worlds. The Ravagers have evolved, Park continued. They are no longer simple raiders. They have developed a hive mind that coordinates their attacks. Their technology has advanced beyond your defensive capabilities. How do you know this? One of the council members asked. We have been watching, Park said. We maintain stealth, observation posts throughout the galaxy. We've seen the destruction of your outer colonies. Duha stepped forward. Even if what you say is true, we don't need help from... He stopped himself. From monsters? Park finished for him, his face showing no emotion. Is that what we are to you, Commander? The monsters parents use to frighten children? Nari moved to the center of the chamber. I have spent 200 years studying the fragments of human history that survived the purge of your records, she said to the council. Everything I found points to one truth. Humans were our allies once. They fought beside us against the Vex Dominion, and became so powerful in the process that the Concordat feared them, Jin added, coming to stand beside Nari. So you rewrote history. You turned them into myths. The council members looked at each other. Nari could see confusion and fear on many faces. Some of the older members looked guilty. This is all very dramatic, Doha said dismissively. But we have no proof that these Ravagers pose the threat you claim. As if in answer, every alarm in the capital began to sound at once. An officer rushed into the chamber. High Commander, Ravager ships have appeared at the edge of the system. They've already destroyed our outer defense platforms. The main screen changed to show the attack. Dozens of small insect-like ships swarmed around Concordat defense stations, tearing them apart. Impossible, Doha whispered. Our long-range sensors would have detected them approaching. They've developed stealth technology, Park said from the screen, something they didn't have before. How many ships? One of the council members asked. Over 200, the officer replied, his voice shaking. More than we've ever seen in one place. Panic began to spread through the chamber. We cannot possibly defend against so many, someone said. We must evacuate the capital. Where would we go? If they can reach the capital, nowhere is safe. Admiral Park's voice cut through the chaos. We can help. The chamber fell silent again. Every eye turned to the screen. My ships are in position, Park continued. We can engage the Ravager fleet before they reach the planet, but I need your permission to operate in Concordat space. Doha looked torn. Nari could see the conflict on his face, the need to protect his people fighting against 5,000 years of fear and distrust. Before he could answer, 3 Ravager ships broke through the outer defenses. They streaked toward the capital, city, weapons charging. The council members watched in horror as the ships approached. Concordat defense batteries fired, but their shots bounced harmlessly off the Ravagers' shields. Then, 3 streaks of light cut across the sky. The human escort ships that had accompanied the Eternal Wisdom back from the Silent Expanse moved with impossible speed. Their weapons fired, not energy beams like the Concordat used, but something different. Something that passed through the Ravager shields as if they weren't there. In seconds, the 3 Ravager ships were destroyed. No debris fell, they simply ceased to exist. The council chamber was completely silent. Admiral Park spoke again. That was just 3 ships, a scouting party. The main fleet will arrive within hours. My fleet can stop them, but we need to act now. The choice is yours, Concordat. The council members looked at each other. Then slowly, they turned to Doha. The High Commander stood straight, his face a mask of control. The Concordat, he began, then stopped. For a moment, his mask slipped, and Nari saw the weight of responsibility on his face. The Concordat accepts your offer of assistance, Admiral Park. Park nodded. Wise decision. My fleet will engage the Ravagers at the edge of your system. I suggest you prepare your people. They're about to learn that humans are more than just stories. The screen went dark. The council burst into discussion again, but more organized now. Plans needed to be made, defenses strengthened. Nari felt Jin's hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said quietly. "You proved humans exist." Nari shook her head. "This is just the beginning. The real test comes when the Ravagers arrive." Across the chamber, Doha approached them. His face was grim. "Senior Archivist," he said formally. "It seems your research had merit after all." Nari met his gaze. The Concordat lied to its people for millennia. The archives were altered. History was rewritten. "To protect the people," Doha said. "You've seen their weapons, Nari. What they did to those Ravager ships. Can you blame our ancestors for being afraid?" Before Nari could answer, Captain Sun joined them. "Commander, the human ships are moving to engage the Ravager fleet. They're requesting tactical data on our defense systems." Doha hesitated only a moment. "Give them what they need, full cooperation." As the captain hurried away, Doha turned back to Nari. "I hope you're right about them, Archivist, because we've just put the fate of the Concordat in the hands of the monsters from our children's stories." Nari watched as the tactical displays showed human warships moving into formation. The ancient treaty was broken. Humanity had returned to the galactic stage. And the Concordat would never be the same. The space around the nexus point glittered with the lights of 5,000 ships. It was the largest fleet ever gathered in the history of the galaxy. At the center were the human warships, dark, angular vessels that seemed to absorb the starlight. Around them, surrounding them, were the colorful ships of the Concordat, representing 1,000 different worlds and species. Nari stood on the command deck of the human flagship Humanity's Return. The massive vessel dwarfed even the largest Concordat cruisers. Through the viewscreen, she could see the fleet preparing for the coming battle. "I never imagined I would stand here," she said quietly. Admiral Park turned from the tactical display he had been studying. "On a human warship? Standing with humans at all?" Nari replied. "I spent my life trying to prove you existed. I never thought I would help bring you back to the galaxy." Park nodded. "History rarely follows the path we expect." He gestured to the display. "The Ravager hive mind has sensed our preparations. They're consolidating their forces." The display showed a massive concentration of Ravager ships. Thousands of them swarming like insects around a distant star system. Their ships were organic in appearance, with curved hulls that looked more grown than built. "How many?" Nari asked, though she was afraid to hear the answer. "Over 12,000 vessels," Park said grimly. "More than we expected. They must have been building their forces for decades, hiding in the spaces between star systems." Nari felt cold fear in her stomach. "Can we win against so many?" "Numbers aren't everything in war," Park replied. "The Ravagers are strong because they are connected, one mind controlling thousands of ships. But that's also their weakness." He touched the display, zooming in on certain Ravager vessels that were larger than the others. "These are their communication nodes. They link the smaller ships to the central hive mind. If we can destroy these nodes, we break their connection. Make them individual creatures instead of a unified force." Nari studied the display. "The Concordat has fought Ravagers for centuries, but we never identified these nodes." "You never needed to before," Park explained. "When they attacked in small groups, each ship had its own local control. But to coordinate thousands of vessels, they need these relay nodes." The door to the command deck slid open, and Captain Sun entered with Commander Tay. Both wore special communication devices that allowed them to coordinate with the Concordat vessels. "The Concordat fleet is in position," Sun reported. "Though many of our captains are uncomfortable fighting alongside humans." Park's expression didn't change. "They'll get used to it, or they'll die. The Ravagers won't care either way." Commander Tay stepped forward. "Some of our ships have integrated your targeting data, but many of our weapon systems aren't compatible with your tactical network." "Then they should stay back and protect the flanks," Park said. "Focus on the smaller ships. Leave the nodes to us." Tay looked like he wanted to argue, but nodded instead. 5 days of working with the humans had taught him that their tactical expertise was far beyond the Concordats. The Ravagers have started moving, a human officer reported. Estimated time to engagement, 43 minutes. Park turned to face his command crew. Begin final preparations. Execute battle plan Omega-7. The command deck buzzed with activity as officers relayed orders. Nari watched in fascination. The humans moved with purpose and calm despite the overwhelming odds they faced. Jin joined Nari at the view screen. The young archivist had been working with the human communications team, helping translate between different concordant languages. "It's really happening," he said quietly. "Humans fighting alongside the concordant again after 5,000 years. If we survive this," Nari replied, "the galaxy will never be the same." Admiral Park approached them. "It's time for you to move to the secure area. The battle will be dangerous, even on this ship." Nari shook her head. "I want to stay. I've spent my life searching for the truth about humans. I need to see this." Park looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well, but stay out of the way of my officers." As the Admiral returned to the tactical display, Jin leaned closer. To Nari, "Do you think we can win?" Nari watched the humans working at their stations, confident, focused, unafraid. "Yes," she said. "I think we can." The battle erupted across 3 dimensions of space. The Ravager fleet came in waves, thousands of ships moving together like a single organism. The combined human concordant fleet met them with disciplined formation. From the command deck, Nari watched in awe as the human ships executed maneuvers she had thought impossible. They moved faster than any concordant vessel, their drives bending space in ways that defied normal physics. "Target the Alpha node," Park ordered. "All heavy cruisers converge fire." 6 human warships fired simultaneously. Their weapons were not the energy beams the Concordat used, but something different, beams of distorted space that simply erased whatever they touched. The first Ravager node ship exploded, sending ripples of confusion through the smaller ships around it. Hundreds of Ravager vessels suddenly moved erratically like insects that had lost their queen. "It's working," Jin exclaimed. "Focus on the Beta and Gamma nodes," Park continued, unmoved by the initial success. "Concordant vessels, move to Sector 7 and intercept the disorganized units." The Concordat ships, their hulls gleaming with colorful insignias, moved into position. Their weapons might not be as powerful as the humans, but they were effective against the now confused Ravager ships. "Admiral," a communications officer called out, "the Ravager hive mind is adapting. They're rerouting control through secondary nodes." Park nodded as if he had expected this. "Execute Phase 2. Deploy the quantum disruptors." Small, drone-like devices launched from the human ships. They moved faster than any vessel, darting between the Ravager ships and attaching to their hulls. "What are those?" Nari asked. "Quantum disruptors," Jin explained, having learned about them from the human technicians. "They interfere with the frequency the Ravagers use to communicate, like creating noise that drowns out their voices." More Ravager ships began to move erratically. Some even fired on each other, completely confused without the hive mind's guidance. For a moment, Nari allowed herself to hope. The battle was going better than she had dared to dream. The human technology was working. Then everything changed. "New. Contact!" a sensor officer shouted. "Massive energy signature coming from the center of the Ravager fleet." The tactical display showed something emerging from within the swarm of Ravager ships, a vessel so large it dwarfed even the biggest battleships. Its surface writhed with organic technology pulsing with dark energy. "The Queen ship," Park said grimly. "I was afraid of this." "What is it?" Nari asked, feeling fear creep back into her heart. "The physical manifestation of the hive mind itself," Park explained. "We've never seen one before, only theorized." The Queen ship pulsed, and a wave of energy washed over the battlefield. The disruptors attached to the Ravager ships went dark. The confused Ravager vessels regained their coordination, moving once again with unified purpose. "All our disruption efforts have failed," a tactical officer reported. The Queen ship is broadcasting on thousands of frequencies simultaneously. We can't block them all. Nari looked at Park, expecting to see despair. Instead, she saw a small smile on his face. They did exactly what I hoped they would, he said quietly, then louder. Execute final phase. All ships full retreat. Clear a path to the Queen. The human fleet suddenly broke formation, pulling back from the engagement. The Concordate captains, confused by the order, followed reluctantly. We're retreating? Commander Tay asked in disbelief. No, Park said calmly. We're making room. As the Allied fleet pulled back, a single human vessel moved forward. Unlike the warships, this one was small and sleek, with no visible weapons. What is that ship doing? Sun asked. Delivering our final solution, Park replied. The small vessel accelerated to impossible speed, heading directly for the Queen ship. The Ravagers fired at it, but it was moving too fast to hit. It struck the massive Queen ship and disappeared into its hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Queen ship began to pulse with blinding light. All ships, maximum shields, Park ordered sharply. The light from the Queen ship grew until it was painful to look at. Then in a silent flash it exploded, not with fire, but with a wave of energy that rippled through space itself. As the wave passed through the Ravager fleet, ship after ship simply stopped moving. Their lights went out. Their weapons fell silent. What happened? Nari asked, stunned by the sudden change. Neural disruptor, Park explained. Designed specifically for the Ravager brain pattern. It severs their connection to their technology, makes it impossible for them to control their ships. The command deck was silent as everyone processed what had just happened. In a single stroke, the human weapon had neutralized over 10,000 enemy vessels. Begin recovery operations, Park ordered. I want those ships boarded and secured before the Ravagers can adapt. As the fleet moved to follow his orders, Nari approached the Admiral. You knew the Queen ship would appear, she said. It wasn't a question. Park nodded. We've been studying the Ravagers for centuries. We knew that if we threatened enough of their ships at once, the Queen would emerge to take direct control. You used its strength against it, Nari realized. Made it. Rev.